Remember, our unit question is, what impact does China's history have on our world? I always like to give us a little review of what we've done. So we started here last time. How did China rebuild its empire after years of war? Following the Han Dynasty was something called the period of disunion. And remember, we learned this word. What do you call a person or group of people who move from place to place instead of living in one place all of the time? You're right, it's a nomad. So remember, the nomads from the north came into the space of China's dynasties, and with them they brought their culture, and then we had cultural contact and cultural blending. But unfortunately, because China wasn't unified at the time, it was political confusion during this period of disunion. Dis meaning not, union, of course, coming together for a common purpose. So they did not have a central unified government. But with the blending of cultures, of course, new music, new art, new food all came from it. So it wasn't all negative, but unfortunately, it was political confusion, and with that came some good cultural change. And then last time we were together, we started the answer to this big question: what accomplishments from the Sui, Tang, and Song dynasties have had lasting impact on China's history? If you remember, we learned the word restore means to bring something back to an earlier condition. So the Sui dynasty is going to reunify China and restore it back into a central unified government. We learned this word civil, meaning relating to the state or government. And then today we're going to answer this big question: what impact did the age of Buddhism have on China's history? Buddhism is a religion. That's why you see it as a capital B. They call it the age of Buddhism because Buddhism, for a longer period of time, really had impact on the government and the people of China. And so you're going to learn about that impact it had, not just the religion itself, but the impact it had within the government and within China's history. To give you an idea, though, you need to know a little bit about Buddhism itself. And so Buddhism is a religion. It was said that a man named Siddhartha Gautama, who would one day become known as Buddha, was a little boy, and he lived in a palace. The religion started in India, in the space that we call India, or in the space that we might now call Nepal, during the year around 500 BC. And it is believed that his name, Siddhartha Gautama, he was a prince, and that he, like most princes, were given everything he could have ever desired, but not in a spoiled way. He was given these things because of the title that his family had. Remember, we talked about class systems. But he wasn't happy because when he looked outside of his palace walls, he saw that the people living within his kingdom were poor and were struggling and were not happy. And he wasn't happy with that situation. And so he gave up all of the riches of his palace and of his kingdom. And he went out on a journey to seek what he called enlightenment. And he wanted to be able to help the people of his kingdom. So it's believed that he sat under a fig tree very still until someone spoke to him. And he was then enlightened and was able to then go and speak the truth that he was given. And the truth that he learned was called, he was enlightened by the truth that he then wanted to share. That's your brief intro to Buddhism. Everybody's going to get the same graphic organizer today, which is called the Buddhism Main Idea Graphic Organizer. You're going to learn just the basics of Buddhism, but more importantly, you're going to learn how does this religion, that's a very peaceful and calming religion, how it's going to help the people in China's history. So here's your graphic organizer, both of you. Page 17, please. Make sure you number it at the bottom, away from the holes. And then let's get page 16, our active listening sheet, ready to listen to some videos today on Buddhism. So let's add our guiding question. Remember, go about halfway down your paper and add, what is Buddhism? Here is your split screen. So you're going to want to either pause here so that you know the work that you need to do, or potentially you want to take a screenshot of this so that you have it as I'm going to continue. T-track, go ahead and get started with the list, just like we would in class. And G-track, I'm going to go over the Sui Tang and Song Dynasty accomplishments with you. All right, so we're on page 14. And so, what events and accomplishments from the Sui, Tang, and Song dynasties have had lasting impact on China's history? Remember, you may have some great things, and please don't erase, but if I have something that you don't have, just add it, because I bet the work that you've done is also very good. There are just some certain things I need you to have. So, Wendy declared himself emperor of the Sui dynasty, and it's because he won the battles, ending the period of the disunion. Yangdi is his son, and he expanded the territory of the Sui dynasty within China. He had the Great Wall repaired. Again, they felt that this was significant because the nomads were able to come in from the north because of the disrepair of the Great Wall. And so remember, that was Emperor Qin's idea to keep the nomads out. When they recognized that maybe this was a potential error to their ways, they repaired the Great Wall during the Sui dynasty. They're going to rebuild the capital city, Chang'an. And so here is an image of our Chinese chicken map. Remember, this is modern day Asia map. Here's Mongolia, Russia to the north. Then you can see the outline of our chicken, which of course is China. Notice the Sui dynasty in orange. It's much smaller once again, but it won't be long before the next dynasty expands its territories again, and they're going to reclaim more land back under China rule. The Tang dynasty. Oh, before we get there, excuse me. So this is really important. So they connected the riverways, the Yellow River, which we know is the Huanghe because of the lace. They called it the Yellow River, and the Yangtze. They're going to build the Grand Canal. It's that Grand Canal that's going to be used for trade, making it easier to ship rice and other products. And so the Grand Canal is going to connect the two riverways. It's going to be over 1,000 miles in length. It's going to have like side canals that will also help connect, and so it's much easier to transport the goods along the water. And so by building this and connecting the river system, they were able to get to more places much more quickly and efficiently. So of course it's the Grand Canal that's really there to support the trading purposes of the dynasty. So here's what that Grand Canal system looks like. And so you have the Yellow River to the north, you have the Yangtze to the south, and then the Grand Canal. And then you see the different canals that are also built connecting it and which dynasty they were built within to help create this large waterway system in China. The Grand Canal stretches over 1,000 miles, and it's going to link the Yellow and Yangtze River systems. If you were there today, it would look like this, similar to this. And of course, it's a waterway, so it's used for transportation, but more specifically, transporting of goods because of trade. And this laid the foundation for the Tang Dynasty, which is another one of China's golden ages. So let's learn about the Tang Dynasty. They restored a strong central government. Taizong is a powerful emperor. He's going to bring back the civil service examination. So that is a test, of course. People learned about the Confucian ideas, and then you had to test to prove that you could be part of the government. Again, we are doing away with bureaucracy and putting people in place who could pass a civil service examination. Empress Wu is very important to China's history. She's going to be the only woman in history to rule China. She was quite powerful. She led with an iron fist because she felt like she had something to prove because she wasn't male. So she's not as much of a tyrant as Emperor Qin, but she did have firm demands that she expected people to meet. They're going to expand the territory to the west during the Tang Dynasty, and they're going to increase trade. As you know, when you expand territory and increase trade, you are increasing your power. And during this dynasty, they invented the woodblock printing. Woodblock printing is going to be expensive and time-consuming, so they are going to want to keep looking for different ways to print. Woodblock printing is what you were familiar with working with Mr. Miller, where you would take a piece of wood, in this case, carve out your message, ink it, and stamp it. So if you wanted to change your message, you had to do a whole nother piece of wood. And so it was time consuming, but the good news is that this laid the foundation for what we know as our digital age in today's society, because it had to start somewhere. And this idea of mass producing information rather than someone sitting there and handwriting everything all the time was really what got brains thinking to the future, which now, of course, we know we are the digital era. All right. So Empress Wu's an important person. So let's do her trading card. She's the only woman in Chinese history to rule the country on her own. She was a very powerful leader who added more officials to the government and strengthened the military. In 690, she overthrew her second son. She didn't feel like her sons were able to rule the government, and she was determined to make China stronger. So look at the Tang Dynasty. So again, you can see the outline of the chicken on the map. And then look how much larger, specifically compared to the Sui. But if you think back to any other dynasty, it's very, very large, the Tang Dynasty. And of course, they brought back the capital, Chang'an. And that leads us to the Song Dynasty. So military leaders ruled China. There were many cultural achievements during this time. They moved the government south, more towards the coast, because now they're going to really increase their trade by opening up trade on the ocean. This is called maritime trade, and so they're going to learn how to build ships. And so instead of crossing the land, they're going to recognize the ease and how you can access many more countries via ship. And so during the Song Dynasty, ocean trade became so very important. And so they opened up many ports in many countries because it's the sea trade that's going to connect. All of the ocean trade and the trade from the Grand Canal created a very strong economy, meaning a money system in the Song Dynasty. So as a result, merchants became important members of Chinese society, which prior to this, they were not part of the important members when we talk about that two-class system. And also as a result of growth in trade and wealth of the Song Dynasty, the Song invented the world's first system of paper money. And this was so that they could more easily manage trading. It's much easier to trade with paper money than it is to trade, of course, with goods or gold bars or coin. So as a result of increased trade, they invented the paper money, and these are examples of what paper money looked like. They invented movable type printing during this time. So instead of the one block of wood, now they're going to put characters onto individual pieces of wood, put those pieces together to create a message, ink and stamp. So it made printing more efficient, and Bi Shang was the name of the inventor. And during the late Tang, early Song Dynasty, gunpowder was invented. And we learned, of course, that it was supposed to be an elixir for life, but that was quite the opposite case, and it ended up being gunpowder. All right, we are ready to add these dynasties to our timeline of China's dynasties. So we have Wendi and Yangdi on the Sui dynasty. They expanded the territory, built the Grand Canal, and reunified China following the period of disunion. So it's the Sui dynasty that reformed that central government. During the Tang dynasty, we have Emperor Taizong and Empress Wu, not to be confused with Han Wudi. So she's Empress Wu. Remember, the only woman to rule China's history. And some important facts during the Tang Dynasty: they increased trade, expanded territory to the west, they had a strong central government, and gunpowder will give credit here. And then the Song Dynasty, we have military leaders. Again, they increased trade specifically to the ocean, and they invented paper money. And this invention, of course, really helped to manage the money. All right, and so G-Track, you are now ready to start working on your list, and I'm going to go work with T-Track on the age of Buddhism.